Okay, everybody's here at 6 o'clock.
Or didn't need to.
Call the
Just
meeting
got
to
close
order.
enough. Sometimes you get close enough, it'll just arc.
Does anybody
Within close
have
enough
any
proximity.
additions to the agenda?
No, I do not.
If not,
Oh,
let's
Wi-Fi,
start.
yes, that I can do. I'm gonna help with Wi-Fi.
We need to approve the minutes from 3 previous meetings. Have you all, do you remember what they are? Because
Yep.
Elaine put copies in your packet there. The first one that we're gonna look at is December 3rd of 2024. If somebody would like to make a motion to approve those minutes,
Move we approve the minutes of December
Second.
3rd.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moved. The second set of minutes is from the March 20th special meeting we had. Somebody want to make a motion to approve those minutes?
Move to approve the minutes.
Someone second?
I'll second.
You go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the last is April 1st.
Wow.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 1st?
I'll make a motion.
Somebody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I missed the first one. What, had it already been approved, Ann? Is that what you said?
No,
The first set of minutes.
oh, the first set of minutes, yes, we did approve,
They had been approved.
had they?
No, we just approved them now.
We just did it
Yeah,
again.
December, we approved all three previous ones.
Yeah.
Okay, just, if I can throw one thing in before Two Rivers begins. Looking through the town plan that we did for 2019, in each chapter, we made recommendations, and yet, you know, we haven't really acted on any of them. And I would like to point out what I feel is a necessary recommendation that we had made to adopt a policy to discourage any derelict or abandoned buildings deemed non-habitable, the specifics to be addressed in a zoning ordinance. So I'd like you to think about that, and at our next meeting, we'll have it on the agenda, and we'll begin discussion on that and how to move forward. I think Elaine printed out a copy of Ludlow's ordinance, and it's quite good. It's extensive. I'm sure they had legal participation in drawing this up. So it looks like a decent model we might want to consider. So, enough said about that. And at the same time, if anybody wants to bring up any other ordinances that you feel might be in order, we can look at those also, but let's reserve all that for next meeting. So, Mr. Two Rivers.
Hello. Okay, so my name is Kyle Hansen. I'm a planner at Two Rivers Ottaquiche Regional Commission. I'm here tonight for two reasons. We've got the planning consultation, which has a bunch of questions to ask you all prior to the expiration of your town plan to start the process of writing an amended town plan, to update it, to then get that approved to last another 8 years. So you're nearing the end of this town plan cycle, and then we're going to the next. I'm also here to present on Act 181, the changes to Act 250, and our regional future land use map. So whichever one you all think we should do first. The map will take a little longer. I think the agenda had the consultation first, but if there's more of a time crunch and we want to get the map. Whatever you all think is best, I'll let that up to you. You can do it either way.
You have to leave early. Which one would you like to hear?
I guess I'm curious about the map.
Let's go to the
Okay,
map.
sounds good to
Thank you.
me. So we've got the presentation up on the screen. So that being said, this is about our Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Future Land Use Map. I'll be showing you a draft map, a working draft map that we can then look at after this presentation. I'll try to keep it quick. Let's see if I can even. Yep, so just the brief overview of the region plan update, the areas in the map, and then have some time for discussion. So we're starting out with the timeline. We are in our first phase of rolling out our updated regional future land use map. We're in that public outreach phase. So we have until December of this year, the end of December, to really get these maps worked out before the Two Rivers Board begins reviewing the maps and the chapter, because this is also going along with a chapter in our regional plan. We've approved an update of our regional plan with all the chapters except for housing and future land use. It's because Act 181 came out at a time when the timing didn't make sense to delay the entire regional plan. We really want the maps ready for public hearings by June of 2026. So we have like a year until the map has to be final. So a lot of time for comments and questions and discussion.
So do you already have a proposed map of Plymouth?
Yes, so we
Okay.
have, for the entire region, we have a working draft done.
Okay.
And we'll meet with all 30 towns in our region, like I am tonight, to talk about what's going on, what's prompted all this, and then show the maps, and then there's plenty of time to draw on the maps, make suggestions.
Okay.
There's some gray areas that the town will, you'll know better than I will looking at it from a region, and then we have our regional methodology to try to keep consistency between the towns and also across the state, because every regional planning commission in Vermont has to follow the same methodology and the same procedure based on the statute. But yes, we do have a map to show, but it's not final as of tonight, and it won't be for months. So that all being said, we'll have our first public hearing in September of 26, and we will need the maps and the chapter to get adopted by December of 2026, so that the state has time to review before the Land Use Review Board gives us the thumbs up, and then everything should be in effect by 2027. So here's just a brief introduction. We're coming at this from a regional planning perspective, so it's not always local planning up or state planning down. We're kind of in the middle. We're looking at our 30-town region. We're looking across town boundaries when it comes to watersheds, ridge lines, roadways, wetlands, fields, all sorts of things that don't really conform to town lines. So good regional planning extends beyond these town borders. So when we're making these maps and making these future land use areas, from Plymouth's perspective, there might be a tiny little area that doesn't make sense to mark as different, but on a regional level, it'll tie in to, Bridgewater will have Curtis Hollow along 100B as well. So we've got some areas that are more regional than they are local, but for your town plan, it'll look different because from a local level perspective, you have different considerations than the regional perspective.
So we got, when did we get village center designation? Was
2
it
years ago.
2?
We don't have to reapply for it anymore.
So
Yes.
does this affect that at all?
This affects it because it replaces that. So.
That's what I'm asking. So what do you mean replaces it?
So the village center designation as it exists now will be gone by the time this all gets rolled out and implemented, because the village centers that we're mapping will be the new designations. So the same policies will apply, but it'll be applied to the new village boundaries drawn in this map.
Not to jump ahead too far, but when you say village boundaries, right now we have a village boundary for this area. Will it expand out or contract, or
They'll generally expand, especially beyond the state designations, for a couple different reasons, and I have a slide about that a little bit later. But
Okay.
if I don't answer your questions, then feel free to definitely we can expand on that. Because yeah, when we're looking at the villages, but we're also looking at the rural areas when we're making these maps.
So what's the thought process behind expanding the village area?
Well, expanding the village area does two things. One, with the state designated village centers, sometimes they miss parts of the village, so
Okay.
some of the outskirts don't have the same benefits that the core would have. Also, for housing targets, you want to make sure that there's enough space for the potential of new housing to go within that village to kind of expand to a point that won't encourage sprawl.
And we don't have a lot of land for it to do that.
There is not a lot of land in Plymouth,
It's not
and
a
your housing
place to
target
go.
is very small compared to other towns in the region, so we'll get into that.
Is your goal
Okay.
also
Go
to
ahead.
expand?
You really want to.
in these areas?
What was that?
Is your goal to also expand commercial development in these village centers?
Yes, so from a regional perspective, the village is getting larger. Not only does it expand the benefits of the state designation for commercial, but it also, when we're doing, if there was an Act 250 case in the village that's commercial, it would be easier for commercial to exist within the village.
And you're taking into account all the new floodplain maps and everything too now?
Yes.
Okay.
So when we're mapping the villages, there will be floodplain in the village
Yep.
map, because we're not gonna draw out the floodplain and make it all squiggly, but we wanna expand it to where there is room that is not in the floodplain,
Yep.
not super steep, that you could actually build on.
Excuse me.
And we can definitely, when we look at the maps, you might want the village to be bigger than what we've shown, based on the floodplain especially. So the state planning goals that have led this whole process really is to maintain the historic settlement patterns of these compact villages separated by the rural countryside. So we want to make sure that we cut down on sprawl wherever possible, but still allow for higher density where there's already development.
So I think for us, just a thought and a question is, I think this is all driven by the need for housing, right?
Yes.
That's how this whole act came about. But in our case, like, there's probably not a whole lot of residential development unless it's second homes. So,
Yeah,
I don't,
and that's definitely a important factor in consideration, especially when you're looking at the towns around Killington and Ludlow and the more mountainy second home towns. It's harder to, your villages are also really small, and that's also a factor as to that would limit growth.
And this is something we were talking about earlier, is there anything in these new proposals that deal with derelict properties or anything like that, or is that not part of this?
Now, that would be more of a town
issue?
ordinance.
I'm just curious, okay.
So these local level, one parcel at a time kind of policies
Okay.
are all local.
Okay.
You'd be able to do more locally. This is more like if there's a 10-unit subdivision, then they'd have to go through activity review if it triggers it, so on and so forth. So this is more of a larger scale development versus your single-family home or subdividing one lot into two,
Okay.
so on and so forth. Those are all local policies. Yeah, this is I guess
What
the
do we-
better way to think about it is this is not a regional zoning map, it's a regional future land use planning map.
And what do we get, 2 acres now for a house in most areas, or?
some places 1, some places 2. I think the majority is 5 acre zoning in Plymouth. Well, and there's a lot of 10 acre, but it's mountainous and conserved.
Just can't remember.
And you have zoning, so you have a lot more control over those
Yes.
local.
Yeah, we do.
local, property by property development. The towns that don't have zoning tend to ask, they're like, okay, well, what's this mean for little things? Like, well, it means absolutely nothing about,
So that's a good question, like Bridgewater doesn't have zoning.
Right.
yeah,
Are you gonna tell them they have to have it?
zoning's not required. for
That's too
this.
bad.
Because we have a
They need
regional
it.
plan, they do need it, but we can't tell them that they do, because it's
Okay.
up to them to decide.
Would you like to continue on?
Yes, we'll
Yeah.
continue. So, another goal is to protect the long-term viability of ag and forest lands.
Good.
So we want to do both, the villages, the housing, ag and forest, rural. So we're gonna expand our villages. We're gonna have, in our current regional plan, in our current regional featured land use map, we have two rural areas. We have the rural general, and then we have our forest-based resource conservation area. So in most towns, the green areas will get smaller. Plymouth's case, you have a lot of state land, so it's really hard to shrink that much than what it already is. But it shrinks a little bit. And there's a third rural area that kind of fits in between the rural general and the rural conservation, and it's called rural ag and forestry. So these are all state created names. They were all in Act 181. The state wanted the same names for the same areas across the entire state, between the RPCs. We can make policies that are different from other planning commissions for those areas, but they wanted the same names and the same colors, just for statewide consistency purposes.
Is there a motivation behind this? I mean, you're dealing with us in our little region, but there's other regions throughout the state, and I'm assuming this is happening throughout the state.
Yes, every planning commission is doing the same process.
And is it with the same goals in mind?
Yes, these state planning goals are the same across the state. Unless an RPC decides to not listen to the statute, which we can't control if they do that or not. We hope they do follow the statute.
Is Vermont leaning towards enlarging all of the little towns and villages and creating more industry or strictly housing or?
This bill is mostly focused on building more housing or planning for the potential for new housing,
Yeah.
while not sprawling too much into the rural areas. There's less of the industrial and commercial encouragement with this bill. This is more of the housing side, and in the hope that with more housing and more full-time residents, you have more industry and commerce. And we have future land use areas that are primarily for like industrial parks and other areas as well. But those are mostly, we have those anyway. Those aren't new. So it's kind of just continuation of those.
Yeah, I don't suppose the state is ready to step in on short-term rentals with all this housing.
The state has not, there's no policies surrounding short-term rentals from the state.
Okay.
I think what,
It does seem like you have it a little backwards, though, or it's the state way. I think the industry comes first and then the houses,
yeah,
at least traditionally, not, I don't think people moving into an area don't
no.
bring in, maybe stores and commercial, but not.
Yeah.
It's, the problem too is, it's a bigger problem, and I don't know how you guys can address this, is the real estate taxes. You're not gonna attract businesses to this state, because I'll tell you, they're hostile to businesses. And they're not gonna build houses because nobody can afford to live in them, because the real estate taxes are too damn high. It's a vicious circle, so I don't know how you address this in this, but until they get those real estate taxes down, nobody's gonna build housing.
Get rid of short-term rentals and the real estate prices will come down.
No,
Guaranteed.
they won't, Jay.
They will.
I don't,
100%.
they won't, because the people won't still be able to afford the houses, that's the problem. It doesn't matter
It's
if
a long-term
an
solution.
investor owns it or a resident, the price is still the same, and nobody can afford it. And that's why there's so many short-term rentals, because they can get more money to pay the taxes.
You do away with them. They're second homes. Short-term rentals are second homes and not for rent.
I agree, but until you get those taxes down,
They've
it's,
driven them out stop.
So the
getting-
goal
I know.
here is,
I was just hoping we could bring that
goal here is
message back.
potential housing
Right.
space.
Yes.
Yeah,
Not to worry about.
It's a great idea.
We're
but-
planning for the space for the housing. When it comes to industrial policies in our future land use chapter, they can exist in the enterprise areas, rural general, they can exist kind of anywhere so long as it doesn't trigger Act 250. And if it does trigger Act 250, we have to follow certain
Yep.
protocols and design review. It's not a guaranteed no build, it's just you have to follow these steps.
I would be the first in line to invest in building housing up here, but I won't do it because the taxes are too high.
Which definitely I understand that, and the
So-
state would need to lead on any kind of reform like that.
That's the key.
Yeah, we're the middlemen in between. The state makes legislation, we try to carry it out and help the towns to carry it out.
I think it's a great idea. But
So I'll go really quickly through some of these areas. I kind of explained what they all were. We'll start on the left with the settlement areas. Downtown centers are the most dense. There are very few in our region, but think like White River Junction, Randolph, stuff like that. Every town will have at least one village center. Some towns have 2, sometimes have 3, sometimes have 5.
Really?
The towns that have water, wastewater, zoning, and subdivision will have a village area around that village center. That's more of your neighborhood versus your pure commercial core. Towns that don't have all that will just have the larger village centers. There's no real difference. It's just if you have the services, you have more room for higher density. So that's really the difference. The hamlet areas are really small villages in the rural area that we mark as a dot on the map. The policies are basically the same as rural general. We have those anyway, those are just continue onwards. Some will get upgraded to villages. Some new hamlets will be pointed out on the map for the entire region.
Granville, for example, a hamlet, or is it a village?
Well, so Granville has state designation for Granville and Lower Granville.
Oh, okay, that's right.
So they have
I forgot
2
about
village
that.
centers
Yeah.
in Granville,
Forgot
but
about
East Granville is a hamlet.
Mhm.
So that's just an interesting, usually it's when a town doesn't need an additional village and it's really small, doesn't quite meet the criteria, it'll be a hamlet.
Does it have anything to do with the size of the area, or is it, doesn't matter?
The size matters less than the density.
Okay.
So like if it's a large area that could be considered a hamlet, like I'm thinking like East Barnard, it could be a village if it was denser, but it doesn't quite meet the criteria because it does kind of sprawl out. And if it had more services, if it had a paved road connection, if it was all these other factors, it's kind of separated. And Barnard doesn't need a second village center. So for their planning purposes, on their zoning, it's a village, but from a regional perspective, it's not large enough to be a village. But we still want to indicate that it's a significant settlement, and it's not just all rural. On the rural side of things, we have the 3 rural areas I discussed earlier. Rural general tends to be our sub 20 acre residential lots that are parcelized. It could be in the forest block, it could be farms, it could be any of these things. It's just generally smaller. The rural ag and forestry tends to be your current use farms, some conserved land, your larger forest, your high priority and highest priority forest blocks. Rural conservation tends to be your state land, federal land, a lot of conserved land all put together, your highest priority forest blocks and connectivity blocks. So those are your really large regional conservation areas. So I'll quickly go through this. Our current map, as it sits now, has those 2 rural areas in our villages. And we took a little bit of each rural area and then have this new ag and forestry area. So that's kind of just gives an idea of what we've done region-wide. We've already gone through the considerations in developing the rural areas. It's kind of like a checklist, so if it meets a bunch of the criteria, will help determine which area it goes in. If it meets 1 or 2, like the farms will usually just go into the forestry and ag, regardless of if it's in a high priority forest block or not. That helps though, but if it meets everything, if it's conserved, high priority, large wetlands, even if it's not conserved, but if it's 100 acres plus, rural conservation, as long as it makes it a contiguous area. We don't want to have 1 blue, 1 green, surrounded by white. We want to make sure that it's all, like if you have 2 houses surrounded by the forest, like the state forest, and you have 2 houses in the middle of it, that'll all be green because it's already developed to the extent of which it can be. I mean, if you have 2 small lots, you could still add you can make it a duplex, you could still add an ADU, but you're not going to have a 10-unit subdivision on a 5 or smaller acre parcel that's surrounded by state forest. So we kind of use that smoothing to make these areas make sense on a regional planning level, especially when we're looking at future development, not just what's already there.
So anything that's in current use will stay in current use?
Oh yes, the current use and land easements and all that will stay as it is. This doesn't affect any of those policies. Those
Okay.
are just from the landowners' agreements with the state. So this won't tell people they can't have current use. And farms can exist in all the rural areas. Forestry and logging can exist in all the rural areas. That doesn't change that, because those uses are also both exempt in Act 250.
Okay.
Residential exists in all of them, ag exists in all of them, forestry exists in all of them at some capacity. It's mostly just your parcel sizes, your highest priority forest blocks, those major regional indicators. Looking at the village areas next, we're using Chelsea as an example because they went first. We looked at the floodplain areas, we looked at the 35% and up for slope. We looked at existing infrastructure to try to find where housing density could be increased or where new houses could be built. The towns that have water and wastewater can increase their density quite a bit based on the new state guidelines. So Chelsea lucked out to where their village, we'll just do this, where their village could really just kind of expand to fill those parcels versus having it be a random polygon that kind of vaguely followed parcels. We try to follow parcels as much as possible to make it make more sense on the ground. So that little golden nugget is the state designation on the left. And then the pink area around it is what Chelsea Village looks like in our current future land use map, regional future land use map. The proposed village combines the two, so it's the village on our regional future land use map, but it also has the entirety of that follows the state designation with its benefits.
So what you're looking at there is the possibility,
It's the possibility.
and the reality is that little bit of yellow.
Well, a little bit of yellow is that commercial core that
Yeah.
currently exists.
Okay.
So what we're looking at is, you know, in the future, there could be new private roads being built. There could be new town roads, especially with the floodplain. I mean, who knows how the village is going to change over time.
I'll say the previous map, it looked like the village development was pretty much in the floodplain. This looks like this pushes it, allows it to expand out.
Exactly. Because all we really have to do here is plan for the possibility of future development. We're not going to say that we don't have the funding to help build new housing. The state doesn't. All we're saying is we are making it so that there is the space for it and the possibility of new development happening. And in the case of Chelsea, if you go on the Beacon Hill side down here, there is actually quite a few people wanting to build new houses because it's just out of the floodplain, but it is close to the water, if not on the water, or like wastewater and town water. But it's close enough to the village to where it's still walkable, you can still go to the stores, it's still a part of the village, even though it's kind of on the fringe. So we want to open up the possibility of new development on the outskirts.
Okay, so let's say I'm a developer and I want to build a 10-house development. Is the idea that I would go to these maps and I'd look and see where this house could be and then try to find
Yes,
land to buy?
it could be used for that. Because
But I mean, I think if you're trying to encourage housing, that's what you would do.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to have one house.
well, that's really why we want to match it to parcel lines wherever possible. So like in the event of a developer looking at the map and saying, what policies would I have to follow were I to trigger Act 250, they would know better to say, oh, my parcel is in this. And if a parcel is bisected, because sometimes you go from corner to corner, if it's a really large parcel or if there's some jagged lines or something doesn't quite make sense on a regional level.
I think you have to check the zoning to see that.
They check the zoning as well, but yes, so it tries to make it so that in the event of development, that they know what the parcel, what area it sits in. And
You're welcome.
I'll also have the PDF maps, so you can look at them digitally as well.
Appreciate it. All right, have a good night. Sorry to miss the rest of this.
That's all
See
right.
you later.
So here's the last slide I have for you, and it's housing targets. So every town in the region has a housing target. The state gave us a number for the entire region, which was around 3,600 units. How we did this was we divided that proportionally based on the town's current population as a percentage of the region, and then we added a multiplier. So The towns that have water, wastewater, and a highway exit got an extra 15%. The towns that had neither lost 30%. Hartford skewed the numbers so much that it had to be the 15 plus and the 30 minus, otherwise Hartford gained 500 to 600 units, and it just didn't add up to that 3,600 number. So for Plymouth's case, your housing target by 2030, which is very ambitious, is 30 units townwide. But that's only 0.8% of the regional total. So putting that into perspective, it's quite a small number considering the region overall.
So you say 30 units?
30 units by 2030.
What's a unit?
A unit could be an ADU, an apartment, a single-family home. A duplex could be 2 units. The state statute now, any single-family home, regardless of where it is, can be made into a duplex, and that's an additional unit right there. There's many ways that a town could plan to accommodate an additional 30 units. It's not like it's required either, so if you don't have 30 units built by 2030, which you probably won't, in most towns that's the case, they probably won't reach the target. The hope is that you plan to reach the target, but if you don't reach it, there's no penalty, there's no kickback from the state, or there's no punishment for failing to, because the hope is that any get built, right? So if your goal is 30 and 5 get built, that's better than nothing, and that's
But the
really good.
town doesn't build these.
The town can plan space for people to come in and build those housing units.
They have to have the money to do it.
But the people with the money have to come in and do it. So it's really just a planning exercise from your perspective, and from our perspective, it's we want to plan for where these could go.
And you show that on the Plymouth map you're going to show us? Where
Yes.
you think they could go?
So in our villages, and this gets back to the question about what the village centers mean and why we want to make them
Mhm.
bigger, is 55% of that 30 unit number has to be planned to be in a village. So you want a majority of it to be in the villages.
Why?
That's for the state planning goal of maintaining denser village centers that doesn't promote sprawl. So I know in many cases, and in most of our towns, most of the housing will be built in the rural areas, but the hope is to plan for the village areas to accommodate that in hopes that there is other incentive or guidance or policy to actually build
So
density in the villages.
that's 18 units.
Yes, 18 units between Tyson and the Plymouth Union.
Now, second homes does not fit in. Does that fit into that 30?
Second homes are technically new housing units.
Yep.
Okay, 'cause
It's a
that,
u-
I think, is what people would be building here.
Yeah,
The units. It doesn't matter who owns it.
exactly. It's just building new,
Doesn't solve the problem, but
but that would require more state policy that is not in this bill. So that would be them either amending Act 181 or a new bill standalone relating to short-term rentals and second homes, which is not likely to happen.
No, because they pay taxes.
Yeah, I mean,
And if you destroy that, our tax base is going to collapse.
Yeah. But there's still units, and the hope is that if more units get built, even if some of them are second homes or short-term rentals, that there will be, this 3,600 housing target, or for the region, is really just trying to bring us up to where we should be now, based on the housing shortage.
Yep.
So there's another number by 2050 that we didn't take into account, that they also said for reference for what should be built by 2050 to, once we get to this 2030 number, to think about future growth. This is just catching up with what we need and what there's a shortage of.
We all may be underwater by 2050, so.
I mean, who knows? That's so far in the future, we're looking at the 2030 number, we felt like that was,
Building houseboats.
yeah, it's far enough in the future for a planning exercise, because we'll have a new regional plan update by then. We'll go through this process when that gets. And who knows what act the state will pass, that might be changed, there might be new areas. That's so far in the future, we wanted to stay closer to the present, but also look ahead a few years.
Mhm.
Are there any questions before I turn the maps on?
This looks great.
I those up, and I also have the paper maps I'll start with,
Do you wanna spread them out on this table here, or how are we gonna do that?
yeah, we can use this table.
Okay.
I'll just share it on the screen as well, because I've got the digital copy, which might be a little easier to start with.
Who's Christina Scott?
Christina Scott, so it's
I
her,
was gonna say, what
It's
is
her
it?
computer,
it's her
she's a,
computer she logs into. She's,
yes, no,
yeah, one of our admin, our administrative
okay.
assistants.
we have a meeting, I get emails from her.
But
That's
yeah, her
okay.
accounts are on all the computers that we have.
That's okay.
It's kind of funny. So here is what Plymouth looks like, if it, there we go, I'll zoom in a little bit. So when we're looking at our current regional plan and our current regional feature land use map, this is what Plymouth looks like. So that kind of olivey off green area is that forest-based resource area. The transparent, it's like satellite imagery view, but
Where's the center, village center right now on this? The yellow?
No,
this yellow right here.
Yep.
On the Union, and then a little bit in Tyson. But the transparent areas are the rural general, the green is forest-based resource, and you have the village of Tyson and the village of
So
Plymouth Union.
Tyson's not part of Plymouth, though.
It is.
This is,
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
So we're gonna merge those two village centers?
No.
No, so you're gonna have two different village
We
centers.
will have two sets.
Yep, so each
Said
state
some
designated
places have
village
5.
by statute has to become a village center going forward on our regional plan.
Okay.
I did meet with Mount Escutney Regional Commission because Tyson does cross the border. We want to make sure that there's cross-regional consistency. So they might have a little spur of Tyson in Ludlow, depending on how that all works out.
Is,
That other one that looks like a shoe, that's up at Coolidge, is it?
No, so we were right in this one right here. This,
so that's our village.
in Plymouth Union. The Coolidge site is just rural general.
What's the little shoe part?
The shoe part here, this one,
Yeah.
that is up Lions Hill.
Oh, really?
Hill Road,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, Bethany Birches, I think, is right there.
Huh?
Yeah, right across from me.
So it's a lot of the parcelization.
We live in the shoe.
But
I
we-
missed
I will switch to the proposed map, the proposed working draft for the regional plan, and get that shared. And we'll look at the differences.
Whoa.
Oh, it already is sharing, cool.
That's the current?
This is the proposed.
That's the proposed.
Working draft. So
What is the blue?
the blue is that rural ag and forestry, that kind of in between your larger parcels, your current use, a lot of more remote parcels, but they're still, could be residential. There's a lot of factors that kind of add up.
Can I
Okay.
grab one of those?
Yeah. So there's both of those maps in there. You've got the current and the proposed working draft. I will also comment that this little lime green area around Farm and Wilderness, there's a special area for, it's called resource-based recreation. So
This
a lot of
is
your
the village.
like lakeside
Right here's the
resorts,
village
your
center right
ski
now.
areas, places like that. I felt like that would fit that criteria
That's
because it is
Tyson,
a
isn't it?
commercial, a large-scale commercial
So this is the proposed
organization that
expansion.
uses the natural resources there for recreation.
And this blue is all the proposed expansion for this
So-
village center?
No.
No.
The blue is the rural forestry and
Oh,
agriculture.
I
So that's
see.
kind of your in-between rural area. That's the bridge between that,
Okay.
you know, the white area and the green area. The Lions Hill area remains roughly the same, with the fringes becoming blue versus, that's like pushing back the green, and it became blue.
So this blue is agricultural, rural stuff, you said?
Rural ag and forestry, basically, it can be ag, it can be forestry, it can be residential, larger lots, 20 acres up generally, and it's in a high priority forest block. A
And this-
lot of the green that's left is really the state lands.
Oh, I own this right here, so.
That one
You're
down
green,
there.
man.
So it's in current use, so.
The reason that got cut in between ag and forestry and rural conservation is that's that kind of regional smoothing where we look at corner to corner on a parcel and say, if there's no town road access that's fully maintained, if it's really deep into a forest block, we don't want a little hook going down. That's one of those gray areas though, where I wasn't really sure what you all would think, but I feel like from a consistency standpoint, this is how it would look. But we can make changes and suggestions if there's something that
So
I was not aware of.
where again is the proposed expansion?
So the
of-
red is the proposed expansion of the
Oh, over here.
yellow-orange areas.
Okay. Oh, it's not on here.
It
Yeah, that's
is,
blown up portion of that.
it's the same
Oh,
area,
it's
but
so
it's
tiny.
really tight, so you
So
wanted
it's
to have-
not much.
Not much, because your housing target is fairly small, like compared to the rest of the
Tyson's
region,
not
and you have
very
two
big either,
villages.
is it? Doesn't.
So
Which
that's
really helps.
There's
basically
nothing, you got that Echo Lake Inn and the church.
18 units down in that
Little
red
bit.
area.
Between Tyson and Plymouth Union.
Yeah, between that and Tyson, the red areas
That's where those
allows for
18,
the 18.
yes,
And then the remainder of the 30 is dispersed.
in all the rural areas, or the resource-based rec.
Here's the town.
You have to put a high rise on your property, put it
So we
on one
looked-
building.
Oh, this is where
We
the
didn't
store
map
is.
those,
Right.
we used
But
them as
this
a
is-
consideration
That's the
to
campground.
That's the
make the maps.
campground.
But those really only came into play when determining the boundaries of the
commercial.
villages,
Oh, it's
because
not
they can
residential.
exist in all the rural areas.
Yeah, because I think a lot of these areas are.
A lot of the areas are really steep, and a lot of these towns, where there's a lot of parcelization, the surrounding flatter lands could be ag and forestry, and the steep areas where there's a house here and there could be rural general. That's just how the numbers calculate, but
Big lot.
the rural areas, think of them as, they're all
35
roughly the
acres
same, it's
of that
just
campground.
what's the density that already exists and what's the potential for more density. Versus it being a ag has to exist here or development has to exist here. It's more of just like a mixture of what is and what could be.
So I'm curious, on this red map here, right here, this is the old Plymouth campground, which is all in floodplain,
Yes,
and it's commercial.
yes.
It's not residential, so we can't build there.
Well, the commercial also counts towards the village. There's also the commercial benefits for being in the village centers.
But that's like all floodplain. That floods bad.
Yes, it does.
I mean, you're talking, because I own the store, the country store's right here, and when this floods, it comes almost up to the road sometimes.
Oh, I know.
The flood map changed that map, your map at all?
So the flood map it won't change this map, but
Overlay it.
it's an overlay that could be used on top of
That's
it.
unbuildable by all.
It's, yeah.
But we
current
did,
standards.
when we calculated the numbers, we did turn on the flood map, and we looked at the parcels that were outside of it,
Okay.
and that were flat.
Because it's.
So
all-
where it's red there,
It includes the floodplain because it's already been built upon.
okay,
We're not gonna exclude parts of the village that are parts of the village just because they're in a floodplain.
gotcha.
Because it's not saying that this is only for future growth, it's also looking at existing development. Because there's also the infill rule when we're looking at floodplains, so if there's already buildings there, we're not gonna tell you have to demolish your structure just because it's in a floodplain. Like, it's already in a village and there's building
There's no buildings there, though.
on that side.
No. It's all campground. It's been since for 40 years.
Where exactly is?
Right here. So this is where this store is. Right here.
Because
This here.
that's on
Dead End Road? Where is, see, maybe I'm confused.
This is 100 right here.
Oh, so Keith, I'm wrong. This is on the other side of 100 up on Dead End Road. This is not, the campground's in here.
Yeah, the campground's already in the state designation, so everything that's in yellow has to stay.
So you can't build on this.
Yeah, but because it has the designation, that has to be in red.
So this is off of Dead End Road now, up and around here.
Yeah, the hope is getting it out of the floodplain.
This
That
is
makes
100
sense.
here.
Where's the river?
River runs here, kind of along this squiggly, and
I
it
can hardly
crosses
see
there.
it, okay.
It's not, we don't have
Okay.
the water layer on this
Thank you.
map, but we
No,
will
that-
on our final
That
map.
makes me, better because you can't.
Are we
Build.
getting lost in details now as far as your presentation?
The presentation part is done.
Oh, it is.
All we're gonna look at now is the map, and if there's any suggestions or other considerations you want me to take back tonight, and then make adjustments, and then send that to you, by the end of the week to see.
So you'll expand the village center to this red.
Yes,
Okay.
and we
But
could
that's-
expand it
That's
further.
all just basically potential.
Yes.
And will the floodplain map overlay this so we can?
So this
You want to
is
spread it out
That's
from the
100.
table here?
You will be able to see it as an overlay. As of now, in our regional plan, our regional map,
Yeah.
it will not have the
Oh,
floodplain. But
'Cause I think that's important.
it will be available to see, because this will be online as
These
a
are all on the other
GIS
side
map.
of the river.
So you can add the floodplain as a layer
There are
and show it
houses
as an
there.
overlay.
Yeah.
But in terms of our planning purposes, we have policies about floodplain.
Yeah.
But mapping and showing every floodplain would kind of take away from showing what's already there as well. So it's kind of, we've gone back and forth on if we're gonna have it as an overlay on our map, but we feel like the surface water as an overlay made more sense.
Do you guys want to see
And then you
this?
could have the floodplain for development, for developers, or for town ordinances. That's more of like a town by town thing, we felt like, versus, because some towns don't want it, some towns want it.
I don't know, it's kind of confusing to me when I look at the village center there, where we are right now, and I see the red, the expanded areas, and I'm kind of aware of the flooding that we've had, and of course, we will again.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Would,
Well, then that begs the question of, should we expand this village center to take all of this up on Dead End Road to try to pull it out of the floodplain?
Why would you do that?
Get it out of the
we
floodplain.
have a goal of 18 units within the village center.
Yeah, we can use this table too if it's easier to
So the
spread it
bigger
out.
the village center, the more possibility to fulfill that.
These are already, I'm,
Assuming they're not high
they're
density.
existing lots,
Yeah,
correct?
but-
Yes, that uses the existing
You
parcel
can't
map
do
as
it
the data we
in
have.
With
the
houses.
floodplain.
Not all of them
Not
have
if you're smart, you
houses,
wouldn't
like,
do it.
most of these do, but like, this is a double lot. You
Even if you're only
could
moderately
build another house
smart.
there, you could build a couple there.
Does this,
Florida style, put them on.
is this part of Bear Lake?
Yeah, well,
That's the old ski area, yeah.
And you have your garage. and
This
everything.
is all this old
And
ski
all
area.
your
Yeah.
important stuff's up.
So that, most of that's
my
just sitting in our
first
rural general,
experience with any of this was
because,
down in Connecticut.
Which is a guy
Out
in
the
Florida
inland
owns
waters.
that, you know.
Panic Rose.
And-
but
and
it
he-
could be sold and it could be developed.
He had
Forgot the
a
name.
huge plan for that.
But
but-
somebody
doesn't
was
want to sell.
doing a new house.
But this is also looking into the
In a flood.
future beyond, I mean, who knows what's gonna happen.
And they were
This is
looking
where you're
for
more likely to be building, though.
variance.
But that's all his
And
property.
in their
Well, no, there's little
That-
parcels here, you could
that
have,
uses, not,
It's kind
not
of a-
this.
because we could draw the village to there.
Is this it here, all Bear Lake here?
Flapping.
Well, like, this is the boundary right
So
here.
if the water rose, you could run through.
Move through.
This line.
And I
I
thought,
don't know
it's
the
brilliant.
implications of that, but
Why
there's more
fight it?
potential building there.
Yes, there
They
is.
do it in the Bahamas too, like.
I don't think you're gonna
all
build
bedroom,
much
everything
up
cool,
in
you know,
here.
kitchen,
No,
everything's
this would be
upstairs
all
and
second
But
downstairs.
floor.
that's the
Whatever,
existing
call
line.
it great
Sick
big
of
or
the
whatever,
house.
house with.
Yeah, we can't take
Big
some of the
slide
yellow
glass
ink
Water
that's
can
already
go
what we
right through
have,
it.
so we can
And then
expand
you
to that,
Put new
to
glass
find this
door,
red
slide
area.
glass doors back up.
I,
Can't fight
And
it.
I've wanted to take everything that already exists, I wanna,
I think, honestly, my opinion, this is my opinion, that this is enough.
you think that's enough?
Yeah, because it's,
Okay.
I don't think if you expand it, it's gonna encourage somebody to build it. I really don't, because it's just the economy the way it is now. Overall, the housing market's starting to dive. It's starting to crash.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it everywhere, so.
Oh, yeah.
And it's gonna, for the next, and it's cyclical, so you can expect for the next 5 to 6 years, you're gonna see a tanking of it. So nobody's gonna be building anything. We've already seen it because,
Boy, are they ever building at Killington, though.
I
But
know,
Well, I don't know
also,
where
I will
that-
say that this goes beyond the next couple of years. Let's say,
It's a 20-year plan, right?
Yeah,
well, not 20-year plan,
Or for
I'd say
long-term.
10 year,
10.
a 10-year plan.
but real estate cycles tend to go 8 to 10 years. So if you're saying 10 years, we're not gonna recoup the housing market.
For 5 years into
But
it.
we'll be
but
ready.
something could happen.
You'll be
We'll be
ready.
ready, but it's just the reality of the
If there's
situation.
anybody
But
left
all these
here.
are unknowns.
Everybody's
We're
pulling
making
it.
these future plans.
Everybody's pulling
We
it
don't know what the
open.
future's gonna look like.
I'm
And,
just saying, if this is the only place where you're practically gonna build,
I mean, that's out of the
it could be
floodplain.
included,
Was it supposed to storm?
but
Rain outside.
What is that?
It's pouring rain.
It's boring.
I did not come prepared for that.
It's supposed to be
Are
I
they
have
nice.
a
in your
raincoat in the
Yeah,
truck.
I know.
car? Oh, better go check.
I should have brought it in with me.
Maybe that flood's gonna be tonight.
We're getting close to our,
We got cookies.
No, this looks good.
Okay.
No, I think this is reasonable, but that's the rest of the group, yes, we look at it.
yeah, because this is all but planning for the potential, because the
I don't
future,
think we
and
have to
also we should
decide
look at
tonight.
Tyson. Because Tyson, actually, a lot of the not floody area to expand is there, that we found.
You're on,
Look at it.
on the record.
It's bouncing off.
Are your windows open?
Yes.
Oh, no,
man.
Frank.
You better run.
What's open?
His sunroof.
Where's Tyson?
So Tyson's,
This
the
one.
inside is up on the top.
That's the proposed expansion.
Okay.
So Tyson, there's a lot more room for expansion that isn't in the floodplain, and that's kind of where we put most of what, that number, that 18 number, could fit there.
Build it up.
Because there is so much steep slope and floodplain up here that it's really hard to see much expansion unless you do what we talked about and expand up there. But that might have been too far away. So that was one of those gray areas that I wasn't sure.
Well, you gotta
Well,
also-
you've got the part of his that's the lower part is
Yeah.
So we got
already
the
in
old
here,
resort.
and that's where he was gonna do this big condo
Condos.
thing.
Because that's where the base lodge
Yeah,
was. And
Oh,
that's already felt
It's
like,
already
it's still
in
there.
there.
okay, it's still in,
It's there.
okay.
So
So that's kind of what we felt
Yeah,
like.
and the challenge too with doing this type of thing, all this is a lot of steep terrain up here.
It does get really steep.
And the roads are really bad.
Okay,
Like right now, you probably can't even get past them because they're gonna be so muddy.
yeah.
And bringing utilities up and septic systems and all that stuff too are gonna be a real challenge
Okay.
on these type of topography. So it's just something to consider.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, if I'm, building a place, I need to make sure what I'm thinking ahead. Can I get utilities in there? What's the attractability of it? You're gonna make sure it's gonna be palatable to a buyer. That's, you can plan to do it, but if the site's not palatable to anybody, they're not gonna build.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. The other map is the existing. And I'm gonna leave both of these
Passing
maps
this on to the
with you
chair.
all, so
Oh,
you
that's
can
Thank you.
draw on them, you can make suggestions,
Oh,
you can take a picture of it, send it to my email.
Looks nice.
So yeah, this tonight, nothing has to be decided or approved or anything tonight. You've got like a year to get us changes.
Well, I'm
Ideally,
hoping we don't take a year.
ideally by December, but,
I had June of 2026 for the public hearing.
so that's when everything should be finalized by.
Okay.
But if you have suggestions, we would like to hear by December. Just that way it gives us time to make the,
December of this year?
December of this year.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, December of 25.
Okay.
That way we have time to make the changes and can meet with you again if necessary.
It does, doesn't it?
But
Wanted
how about
to
these
double
rural
emphasize
areas?
that one. Bridgewater, Bridgewater.
Wow.
How do you feel about, I know there's not much we can do with the rural conservation, but between the ag and forestry and the rural general, the policies on our end are going to be very similar between the two, but how do those rural areas look as well? Because the villages,
That's all the green.
there's a lot of green.
That's fine.
The green is conservation
Yep.
forest, the blue is now rural ag forestry, right?
Yep. And then the transparent is just the rural,
That's me
everything
right
else.
there.
Part of
What is the significance of it being blue now?
So that's just your larger
the new
parcels. It's showing
No, I'm
potential
in,
future
I'm
ag
in
if there's not
devotion up
current
here.
ag. It's also just, it serves as a bridge between the green areas in terms of like forestry or forest connectivity.
Right? Could it be developed?
It could be developed. I mean, all these areas could have some kind of development. It's just,
Thanks.
it's a ranking of rural density. So your transparent area tends to be your most dense, most prime for more rural
Target
density.
damp.
The blue is a little less dense. The green
This
is,
is us.
our current policy for our green areas will continue into the new green areas. So whatever
Blue-
policy for density
blue
there is for
area?
that
You in
forest-based
one of
resource
these?
will be the same for rural
Rural
conservation.
This is us
agriculture.
right here.
Oh.
So it'll be like,
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
They don't show Windy Lane.
so you've gotten in the ocean.
I think that's really trying to make sure development's closer to existing
With
roads,
oceans,
Right.
make sure there's not a ton of subdivision. Like five subdivisions would be fine. Things like that.
No, the nice thing about Plymouth is we've got a really great balance between green space And living space, which is
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we all love it up here.
Yeah.
Why is this, are these 10-acre lots? Is
Those
that
are
why
all the
they're-
10-acre lots, which is why that is still rural general.
Okay.
So I drew a straight line across some of them to the back lots, just to keep that buffer. Blue tends to be really good for
Because
buffer.
this here
House
is
is in the
agriculture,
steepest part
that's,
of town.
that's rough one there.
Yeah, it's Rebecca's
I think depending on
place.
her lot size, if
It's-
it's,
it's a small one.
if it's sub 20 acres and there's ag,
So this is Gene Krause's.
totally fine.
Wow.
It's 100 acres.
Yeah, it's a pretty big lot, that's why that became blue in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, there's all sorts of covenants on that land, it can never be developed,
Okay.
I can tell you right off the bat.
You
Blue
wanted
is
to-
also-
No,
Oh, okay.
I asked
Good.
it, I wanted it to make it a rescue, designated as a rescue organization.
Because blue is also good, I mean, a lot of your conserved land ends up in blue as
I
well.
was gonna
That's
say,
not
there's
green.
conserved land up in, off Pine Hill Road, right?
Our whole
Up in
property is
here?
conserved.
Yep.
Conserved
Rural.
being up higher than a certain number of feet above sea level.
Well, it's mostly an acreage.
Most of
Oh, is it?
Most of the state owns a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of state in there.
This is my 100 acres right there.
Yeah.
And
And
that's-
this is, I don't know who owns this, it's a company owns this.
The
part.
lakes are not showing, that's,
Is this Pine Hill?
Yes.
there's
that's
no
Pine
lake
Hill Road.
showing, that's what makes it
And this is
confusing.
the logging road.
Yeah.
I think it's called Old School.
think the lake
Reservoirs
The
up
lakes
there.
will be on there on the final. This is just our map for presentation, it's a rough draft, so it's not.
If
Not
this is
everything's
Pine,
up there yet.
this is Pine Hill,
Yes,
what is this one over here?
Old Schoolhouse Road or
Yeah,
something.
that goes over to Reading Pond there. This
Yeah.
is where you, when you do the loop in Pine Hill, you go this way,
And
you
this
come back
is,
this way.
this is, crap, it goes to the pond, Colby Pond.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
can't remember what that road is, but this is where Andy, what's his name's house is right here. The ARC?
Yeah,
ARC, yeah.
He's right here.
And that goes down to, this way, there's a trail going down to,
Yep.
Scout Camp
Sure
Road.
did.
Yeah.
Been on a ATV.
Wow.
So yeah, if all this looks fine by now, we have plenty of time to hear back, but if there's no other suggestions for me to go back home tonight and tomorrow to get these things updated, then we'll,
Do you guys like it all?
Mhm.
I like
Think it's
it.
good?
yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm-
do.
I think it's a lot to digest. We'll
Yeah, for sure.
probably
we
be
have
looking at
time,
this
so
more.
no worries, no rushing. You can send me an email with suggestions, or give me a call, and
Okay.
definitely available
It's
for,
30 units.
yeah, I mean,
That doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
I know,
That's our goal.
the goal is to plan for the possibility of those being built. And then and when you update your town plan,
Good to have a.
just acknowledge
And
that
there's
somewhere.
more possibility in the Tyson area than because of flooding than down here in Plymouth unit, is that what you said?
Yes, there's more possibility for more density in Tyson.
Yeah.
And that's just because we want to keep the existing villages. We don't want to build a new village up on Lions Hill. And we can't make the Coolidge site into a village because of the
Historical thing.
historic.
It's very nice up there.
So it kind of constrained on where the villages can go because you already have the two designations, but we made it work. We crunched the numbers and it theoretically could work.
If somebody built a condominium, would each of those units be
Yep.
counted?
Yes.
for? That's what we
Each
just
one's
needed,
a
a few
unit.
condominiums. would
So
be-
somebody built, one building was 6 condos, that's 6 units.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not, that's why we say units, because it's not structures, it's
Yeah,
Dwelling unit.
dwelling units.
That's,
that's it.
that's the reason.
Yeah. All right, well, yeah, I'll leave those with you, and you have the rubber band to roll
Some
and
garden
back
style
up.
Thank you.
condos.
But if we're all good here, then we can go into the planning consultation part.
Moving on,
Could you limit it?
All right.
Thank you, that
Only
was
sale,
good.
won't sell in a second.
roll up the map, it's time for the next episode.
Well, depends on how cheap you can build it.
Cheap on tariffs and driving prices through the roof right
Steel. Whatever, whatever your per square foot is, if you can do it.
Yeah.
Contractor grade stuff and all that, just a place to hang your hat kind of deal. People are buying. But you gotta build them right, for the right money. I don't know how you do that right now. I mean, they're building in New Hampshire. So you can get it done,
The real estate tax is cheap,
not much.
but they don't have a state income tax.
Well, true.
That's why.
You pay one way or another. There's no free lunch.
Yeah.
Got no state, no sales tax, but
Yeah, we need like cheap.
you pay high property tax high,
But
Okay,
property
he's
tax
ready.
is
Go
just
with
less than
next.
ours though. Per
a little
capita.
bit.
All right,
Ready?
so planning consultation.
Hang on.
So we're moving from the regional planning to more local planning now. So basically what this is, we're consulting with, we got this with all of our 30 municipalities, every 8 years or so, when the town plans are about to expire. We just want to figure out what your needs are, what help, what assistance you'll need to start that town plan update process. We just want to hear from you about assistance that you basically could use from us. And yeah, it's required by the state, and it's just a good way for us to talk to you all and see what you might need moving forward. So we just need to confirm that I'm just reading off the questions on the document. So just want to make sure that you're engaged in a continuing planning process that will result in a plan. But you all are here tonight and are going to regularly meet. So yes.
Is a logical way to use the existing town plan and we just walk our way through it?
Yes. So when
Because
we,
it seems like we just did that. You know,
That
I
was
know
the
we
zoning.
didn't.
We did.
zoning, yes.
Yeah, it
So
wasn't
you
too
just did
long
the
ago.
zoning ordinance update.
Yeah.
The town plan update will be really similar, where one of us will, if you need our assistance, will help walk you through chapter to chapter, suggest changes based on changes to state statute or what other towns have done, and say, how do you feel about this? Yes or no? Make suggestions, help walk you through it. So, but we'll take your existing plan, we're not gonna write a whole new plan. It'll be updating the plan that you have.
Okay.
It was really helpful last time. I think Kevin did it with us last time.
Yes, Kevin's great, and he's really knowledgeable, and I'll be helping Bridgewater this year, so I don't know if I'll be around next year for that, but whoever is, will do the similar kind of thing. And another question is, I mean, are you receiving any local funding for municipal planning purposes? Because if you apply for a municipal planning grant, for example, you'll need to have a 10% match from the town. So the state will, if you do receive the grant or apply for the grant, you'll have 90% from the state, 10% from the town. So just make sure that that's an option. For Bridgewater's town plan update, that worked out. We kept it, the batch under $1,000. But that's gonna be they don't have the zoning, but you just did your zoning update, so you won't need to do zoning ordinance, it'll just be town plan.
Last year.
Yeah, so you will probably also be able to keep the cost lower, because you're not doing it all at the same time, unless you want to add anything.
What is a reasonable cost, do you think, amount of money for us?
For you, would be, so for overall, the entire grant would be anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000, so 10% of that, so around
1,500.
1,500 at most, I would say, for just a town plan update. Some towns want more, some towns have a zoning, they want to do subdivision, they want to do flood hazard, they want to add a new ordinance.
Yeah,
That'll increase the cost.
We're good with that.
But with just a town plan update, you can keep it around that 10 to 15,000.
Okay.
So that match would be 10% of that.
So the application process for a regional planning grant is what kind of time frame?
So we just got the grants for this year. So when those roll around, either I or someone else reach out to you about, say, this opportunity is available now. Your plan will be expiring because you have 2 more years. So like next year, we'll say your plan will be expiring in a year. There's opportunities now to apply for this grant. We can get this process moving before expiration. So yeah, we'll follow up with you on
Okay.
that.
do you apply for the grant? Does Two Rivers apply for grants?
So we would be like administering the application for the grant, just make sure everything's checked off. So yes, for the towns that are smaller than 2,500, the rural towns, we can be in charge of making sure that you apply for the grant, that we help you walk through it. You have to, one of the select board chair will have to accept the grant once it's been given to Plymouth by the state. So like in Bridgewater's case, I compiled all the documents with the assistance of the Planning Commission and the Select Board, crunched all the numbers, got all together, got the approval of the Select Board, submitted the grant with their approval, but then they had to be the one, without me saying, yes, we're accepting the grant. So we can help apply for the grant, but the town will have to actually formally accept it, and then we make a contract with the town, and then the town has the grant money to then we bill to. So it's kind of like a complicated process, but the town gets the grant, we help get the grant. The town gets the grant, and then the town uses the grant to pay for our services. It's kind of, it's interesting how it works. But.
So you,
Yeah, I mean, it could
Minus
be a
10%.
little more streamlined, but the 10% of the town is really the only part of the town money that has to go towards paying for the grant, per the match. So,
sounds reasonable.
yeah, in practice, it works pretty well. But we can definitely help you in applying for the grant.
And that's the first step?
And that's the first step. So yeah, in about a year, when the next grant application process rolls around, we'll reach out to you, and then we can help you apply.
So you'll keep an eye on that.
Yes, and they'll let us know.
Yeah.
The state, they'll say, hey, the next round of grants are going live. If there's any towns with plans that are going to be expiring within the next couple of years, have them apply. And so they definitely want us to apply to these grants. They will let us know as soon as they're live, which is nice. So I guess going down with other questions. So are there any specific efforts that you're currently or planning to undertake to update the town plan as we speak right now?
No.
Okay.
Having just pretty recently done the zoning, I think there hasn't been a huge motivation to jump right into a new endeavor, but.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And what parts of it, if any, would need to be updated?
Need to and will.
That's the whole
Energy
thing, we
piece
gotta
will
go
have
through
to
it
go.
and see.
Most of it will just carry over, won't it?
I've read
So-
through it.
A lot of
I
it,
don't see any changes.
a lot of it will carry over. The biggest thing will be the housing. So looking at the planning for the housing target, the
And
future
that's
land
all
use.
a huge hypothetical.
But that's the planning, so if it were to happen, we just want to make sure we have the space
in
for it, the
place.
plan in place for it. It's basically, yeah, it's the housing, it's future land use, energy, and if there's anything that has passed state statute since 8 years ago, that's required for towns to have in their plans. It's really just making sure that you're up to date with.
So when the ocean
state.
temperatures rise enough and the glaciers and everything melt, and the shoreline properties are gone, then we can expect an influx of new people.
Who knows?
Be ready.
We'll be ready. That's the
They
plan.
head
We want to
for
be
the
ready for
hills.
anything. Anything and everything.
Everybody heads for the hills.
And Plymouth will be in a great spot when the sea level rise.
For a little while.
I mean, it can only rise so high. There's only so much ice to melt.
Oh, you have no idea.
I'm at 2,000 feet, so I got,
Apparently, that's pretty high.
It's like in Brookfield, there's a house that has they're up on the hill, but they've got a little dock and a sailboat ready to go. It's like future oceanfront property. It's kind of funny.
Their name Noah?
No, I don't think so. That would be a good name. So, second question. Yeah, so you've recently got the zoning ordinance So you've already updated that, so I'll just record that, because I don't want to make sure I have that written down.
It's a fine job.
And when was that exactly?
It
That
was
was,
effective June 11th of last year.
okay.
Took us
And
years
then-
to do that.
Your flood hazard bylaw, is there any interest in updating that as well, or is that just gonna carry through?
I would just carry it
We'll
through.
We
look at
just
them,
did
but-
it.
We just,
Yeah.
You just did it in the zoning?
yes, yeah.
If
Okay.
it's done in the zoning, does it have to be included in the town plan?
You can make mentions to it and references to it, but it's not gonna require a whole new ordinance in the
Okay.
process of getting a
Yeah.
new. It's basically just, if you would go through the steps of updating it, will require its own hearings and its own rewrite.
Oh.
But you can mention it in the town plan as part of the update,
Mhm.
but that doesn't require its own ordinance to have it in the town. So like, you have the hearing process, it'll just add more hearings and public input and
Mhm.
more time and cost, which is really why those, I want to make sure that you're just wanting to do the town plan. Okay. But yeah, are you planning to draft other bylaws or subdivision or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
you got your,
Mm-mm.
thinking,
Well, that'd be an ordinance.
okay, so
Or
we'll
bylaws.
go into,
I mean, are there any other ordinances you'd be interested in pursuing?
Well, we're talking about an ordinance regarding derelict buildings,
Okay.
abandoned buildings. We have a couple right now that, one in particular is quite an eyesore. And if
Okay.
we could do something about it, that'd be great.
Okay. That could be a possibility. I'll look into that,
Okay.
if other towns are doing that, but I wrote that down as a possibility that you might be interested in. Second part is capital budgets. Have you adopted a capital budget program?
No.
Okay. I don't know why it's defaulting to red text, but it's making this take a little longer. Are you interested in drafting a capital budget since you don't have one, or capital budget
What
plan?
would be the
Yeah.
reason to do that?
Just planning for future investments into like new
But that's
planning
under,
grants.
that's
or-
the town select board.
The select board would have to
That's-
sign off on it.
That's their purview. We wouldn't, I don't think we'd do it here,
I
no.
don't think so.
Yeah, and for the smaller towns,
No.
you wouldn't. For larger towns, you definitely would, because if there's like certain town-led projects you're looking to fund, new buildings, if you need a grant, that's a pretty high cost, maybe a high match, you want to make sure you have the funding for future projects, future grants, stuff like that. Would be the capital budget, but since you've already done zoning and you'll apply for the MPG, you only get 10%. I wouldn't see a need, but if you thought of anything that would require that, that's where we would ask these questions.
This building here was the biggest thing that Plymouth has done.
Forever.
Yeah. For the town, boy.
Yeah, so like if you were to build this building and plan for it, that's where a
Yeah.
capital budget plan would come into place. But since you already have.
Too late.
Yep.
Yeah, you kind of missed the ball on that.
Yeah.
Spent all our money.
And then some.
So for supplemental plans in this section, are you planning to draft any, so that'd be like, site plans for development, redevelopment, bike ped plans, river corridor? Okay.
We want to stay small and low key.
Yeah,
Please.
definitely.
Yeah, under the radar. Yeah.
Okay, other actions, programs, and measures to implement the adopted town plan. So you have the two designations, the Plymouth Union and Tyson. But are there any other actions, programs, or measures that you've taken to implement the adopted town plan?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
no, we need to take a careful look at what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
And also at what Two Rivers said we should do the next time around, so somewhere I've got the approval.
Could you send this all copy of the town plan?
Sure.
Currently,
The existing town plan?
yes,
Yeah,
just for reference.
yeah, definitely.
It'd be good to review it beforehand, just to see if
You're
you could
gonna
think of
need
any
that anyway,
chapters.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the sooner you start reading through it and finding areas that might need updates or changes, or something that might be a little, chapter might be really short, you want to add a paragraph or two to it that's more up to date, that might include things that weren't there. I will make a comment.
Yep, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Should you come in every week, don't you? Should I leave it here for you rather than mailing it, or
Yeah, you can do that or just email the
Is,
PDF.
is there a PDF?
if I email it, you've got to print it out yourself, you don't
You,
want,
you
That's
could,
That's fine, that's fine. I think everybody.
yeah, I'll just leave
it's,
it.
it's a lot of pages.
Yeah, it is a lot, and it's,
She,
You
they
need
could
it to take
do it
notes
here,
on-
you could come in and pick it
for
up.
meetings,
All right.
I think.
I'll
Elaine,
pick up a copy.
for everybody
I'm
who
sure I
wants
got it.
one,
I
then
looked
print
and
it
said-
here and they can stop by and pick it up.
Yeah,
In my pile.
and just make sure you hold it for all the meetings that we have, so that you
Yeah.
can mark them up.
I found
But
two
there,
copies of the zoning.
beside the derelict building, so, you know.
Well, this
oh,
is
there was
something
another
at our
thing.
next meeting,
Okay,
I want to go through the town plan
okay,
quickly, but looking at things like the derelict building. For instance, on any one of the chapters, at the end, there are recommendations that we've made,
review
and nothing has been acted on any of them. So we ought to look at them and decide if there are any that we feel we should go forward with.
And someplace I have the review that Two Rivers did of that. I think I probably have my own computer, but it also recommends stuff that they thought maybe we should address the next go-around
Yeah.
that wasn't adequately addressed the last time,
Yeah.
which is their normal operating thing.
Maybe they can
Anything
find
you
that
come up
for
with,
us.
Ann, that you need copies to distribute to the board,
Yeah,
Yeah.
see if I can find it. It was 2019, was it? when we
yeah,
did that?
Mhm.
2019.
Excuse
I
me.
should probably have it.
This is right before COVID.
Well, it would be in my Two Rivers collection of stuff, but I don't think it's on this computer. I'll just have a
Any
look.
more questions?
You got a few more.
Okay.
So when necessary, have you all, as a planning commission, received appropriate local funding, like for matches for grants, stuff like that?
I think we've ever asked for it.
I don't think we have. I think that would have to go through the select board, any
Correct.
But have
requisition.
they, if there was ever something, have they,
We've never asked for it.
okay, never
No.
asked?
But if you want to give us money, that's okay.
And that would be up to them.
I've got it.
How was the town plan update funded in 2019? Was that just a full grant? Was that before the match?
It was a grant, and I'd have to go back to the records to see how much we paid.
Okay.
I think it was the same process that you described before.
Yeah, it's probably that.
Probably 10%.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
We
That
paid
wasn't
a
an
little
issue.
bit and then the grant covered the rest.
Correct.
Okay. That's very normal for Vermont when it comes to municipal planning grants. But if that wasn't an issue then,
no.
it shouldn't be again.
No.
Has anything hindered or interfered or delayed your planning process?
Absolutely not.
Neither rain nor
But
snow
you give
nor
us a
sleet.
timeline by which we
Or
need
mud.
to have the final draft
Nope.
approved. If we could have a timeline to work backwards from.
So for our purposes of reviewing it, this would start, let's say next summer, or early next year. And then you have, the plan expires in September of '27. So
But there's nothing preventing us from being proactive and getting it done sooner.
you can be proactive, if you want to do on your own end, reviewing it, making suggestions.
Yeah, I mean,
There
if-
might not need to be a grant if you want to spend a lot of your own time going through the process. And then you might not need as much money to request for, if you want our assistance or if you need our
If we're not
review.
changing a lot.
If we go through our town plan over the next year, 6 months, I don't know. We'll make notes of what we have questions on, where we think we might want to make changes, or we may like it the way it is. But we'll know better at that point, having
Yeah.
gone through it.
I would definitely recommend, yes, like, starting to look at it now.
Yeah.
Take these next months up to a year to think about changes that you want to make, questions you have. We'll still have to, on our end, because for the town plan to have regional approval, you will have to meet certain criteria that was put forward by the state. That's where we would come in to say, you know, does this chapter meet the criteria? Because we have to bounce it off our regional plan and the state statute.
How much has the criteria changed since the last time we did the town plan?
A few things have changed here and there, especially when it comes to the housing, future land use, that's just what we discussed right now.
Okay.
As well as, I mean, you could think about your emergency response, you could think about the floodplain areas, you could think about health, pandemics, you could think about,
The zombie apocalypse.
I mean, who knows, you can plan for
Melting ice
anything.
caps.
It's mostly the housing.
Yeah.
Housing, energy, and future land use are the big ones.
Such a hypothetical, though.
Yeah.
It is, but
I mean, it's-
that's all planning really is. We're
Yeah.
planning for the possibility of
Yeah.
things either good or bad, or neutral from happening. So I'll wrap these up. I have 3 more questions. What are the ongoing or future planning needs of the Plymouth Planning Commission?
No idea.
Okay.
We meet regularly and
More
take
members.
applications and
So,
deal with it as we go along.
Ann wants to retire, don't you still? We need
Not-
I may
not in
die
the
first,
cards.
but you know.
we need more members. But you can't help us with that.
Elaine, I just sent you
Okay,
the PDF of the Two Rivers Review document from 2019.
oh, is that right?
Yep,
Okay,
found it on my computer. Amazing.
So
and I have it, thank you.
second to last question, how can Two Rivers Ottaquechee assist you with your ongoing or future planning efforts? Beyond helping walk you through the town plan update.
Not much.
Okay.
And it's a great group.
I think we really need to look at it with the idea that it might need changes, you know, before we can answer any questions like that.
That's a really good idea. So
Right.
take your own
Yes.
review of it first,
Yeah.
take the time for that, and then that'll just really help streamline
Mm-hmm.
and keep the grant on
And
the lower
one of
end of
Right.
cost.
Key
as
things is
possible.
to keep us in conformity with state statutes and things.
Yeah.
and-
Exactly.
And the regional plan.
Okay.
We have to,
Do you?
we have to be in
Distribute
conformity.
the state statutes to us before we start, so that we can see where those things have to be inserted?
So we have a couple books with the updated statute, but I don't know if I've only been at Two Rivers for a little more than half a year at this point, so I haven't started that process yet. I will be with Bridgewater. But I'm sure we can help guide you to where you can find the statutes.
Okay.
I don't know if we have enough to hand out to
Oh,
everyone.
well,
We can go, if you want to ask, on an email, I can help guide you to where you can find that.
and if, when we're going through it, somebody will be assigned to us for communicating and
Yes.
being the point person from you.
Yes.
If we get the planning grant.
If you get there, which as long as, I found that like this year, Bridgewater's was on the lower end of cost and they got
No
it, no
problem.
problem.
Mhm.
It's really just how you apply for it. So you want to make sure that you highlight the updated changes that are required. So housing, energy, future land use, maybe preparing for future flood events. Stuff like that, things that are pressing
So the
state
grant.
issues.
Sustainability.
And that's
Sustainability.
something that you, Two Rivers, would help us with.
Yes, we can help word that in a way that the state will be happy with, and they'll give you the grant.
That's how you get paid.
Yeah, I mean, it benefits both of us. Helps us, you know,
And we'll-
pay the employees, but also helps you get the town plan updated smoothly and make sure that everything will pass review.
Okay.
Yeah, we can help you with find the statutes.
Okay.
What happens
I'll
to a
look at a couple
town
of recent ones.
that doesn't comply, that doesn't get a town plan in under the wires?
So if a town plan doesn't get approved regionally, or the town just takes so long in updating it that it doesn't end up getting to the point of even being approved, if it's expired, the town can't receive certain grants from the state, usually planning grants. So it really, it hurts going forward, because if you don't have an approved town plan and you can't apply for grants to then do ordinances or other planning efforts, it kind of,
Has
makes
that
it-
ever
And it can
happened?
be
Have
in
there
deep
been any
doo-doo if somebody
towns that
doesn't
just
act 250.
say to hell with it?
Pomfret,
Really?
yeah. They're working on a town plan update, but it's probably not gonna pass, review. And they don't seem to care. We've told them, we've said this is what would happen, and, you know, you really wanna make sure it passes, cause you'll get a lot of benefits,
Yeah.
but it's not enough of a penalty for them to see like it's necessary.
Hmm.
So, but we really want our towns to have an approved town plan, but it's not required, you don't have
But in
to.
this day and age.
But with
we
how
need to
expensive
be
things are.
Able to receive grants.
Exactly, like that's really important.
Yeah.
With how expensive everything is. I mean, you're paying taxes, you might as well get some of that state money back to help with planning efforts.
Yeah.
And then my final question is if you have any questions or comments for me about I mean, we've already discussed a bunch of questions that you had, but if there's anything else that you may have missed.
I don't know, as far as a comment, I'd like to say thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
it's
you
good.
all as well. We're glad to help. We want to help as much as
Been
possible.
very interesting and informative.
Yeah, there's a lot of hopefully good changes when it comes to,
We're gonna
Hopefully new
change
housing.
colors, man.
yeah, change the colors on the map. We're changing the map one color at a time.
So what do we need to do for you with regards to the regional map? Do we have to send a statement that we approve it, or is there anything there that's,
That's not required yet.
Okay.
When we have the public hearings, that's around the time when we would need to see if the towns sign off
the
on it.
public hearings would be held by Two Rivers?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll have public for the entire region. We'll have the draft regional map
Uh-huh.
put together. Right now, we have a working regional draft that's online we have a link on our website to it. I could send that link to you as well.
Okay.
And then you can send it to everybody. Or I can just reply to the group email that I was a part of. That'll be a link to how the region looks, and you can see these areas across the town boundaries for the towns you've already met with. So you're about halfway through the region. I think you are actually number 15, the 15th town out of 30 we've met with. So
Mhm.
we're going to work our way east now. So we have a lot of the Green Mountain towns done, and then we're going to start in Bradford area and work our way back south.
So for us, as far as going forward, we're gonna start reviewing our existing town plan, we'll talk about it. Will we be hearing from you on a regular basis, or any kind of a schedule at all when we can expect to hear from you the next time?
So if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out anytime.
Okay.
But if it comes to assistance with the town plan consistently, you kind of have to wait for the grant
Okay.
process, unless you want to procure more local funding sooner.
So the
That would
first
require
step is
more.
the grant. When
The first step's the
grant's-
grant.
Yeah.
Because you have 2 years. So you have a year to then apply for the next grant, which will probably be in the spring, probably around March.
Okay.
That's around when it was this year. It might be a little different next year.
And you'll contact us, letting us know?
I will contact, or not, if not I, someone else.
Right.
Who
Spring
will be
20
helping you.
2026.
Will reach out
Okay.
to say, hey, this grant opportunity is available, let's meet, talk about.
Because we don't wanna rely on my memory.
We'll definitely reach out to you. We don't want,
And we don't want to pay the full price either.
exactly. We don't want any town to fall through the cracks.
No.
So we'll reach out. But yeah, take that time in between to review. If you have any questions here and there,
Mhm.
we can help answer some questions. But if it's sitting down with you every planning commission meeting and working through, we wouldn't be able to do that until there's a
No.
contract in place, just because that's just how it
Right,
works.
that's,
It's really just the contract part.
Yeah.
And the contract to fund it would be through the grant.
okay.
So, yeah. But
Okay.
so far, it sounds like you have a good plan in place. So you're definitely working, you're being proactive, which is good. There's some towns that don't have a planning commission at all for a couple years. And then we reach out to them and say, hey, have you been working on this stuff? And they're like,
Who's gonna do that?
yeah, like, I don't even know who's on the planning commission anymore.
Yeah.
So definitely good that you're,
Well, it helps we're the same thing as the zoning commission, and we have to meet because people apply for things. So
that makes it really easy if you're
functioning.
one and the same. Towns that don't have zoning though, we kind of just like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
That's it for me. So thank you all for being
Thank
here
you.
and having me
Thank you
here.
for coming.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been fun.
Okay.
I'll just close everything out. I've already left the Zoom, so.
Thank you for being a nice guy.
I'll try my best. Yeah, gotta keep it in line.
How'd your car do?
It wiped out all the pollen that was
Oh,
on it.
that's good.
Kyle, we recently
Watched it right
voted
out
to
the door.
eliminate blisters and
No, I have to
and
put it
hired
out.
an assessor, but I don't
Is it
have
bad?
his contact
No, not
information.
too bad.
I'll get it and
Are
send
we
it to
ready
you.
to close the
It's still
meeting?
dry.
This person is
Bruce?
still
Ask the chair.
employed
Are we
here,
ready to close the
Okay.
meeting?
I'm waiting for
But these are
him.
crossed off.
Sounds good.
Well, if that's it, does anybody have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
What time is it, guys?
So moved.